The restaurant was dimly lit, the kind of place where conversations happened in hushed tones and secrets were shared over wine. I sat frozen in my chair, staring across the room at a sight that made my heart race and my palms sweat. There she was, Gloria Sanders, my ex-girlfriend, Brenda's mother, sitting alone at a corner table, nervously checking her phone. She looked beautiful in a way that took my breath away, her silver hair catching the candlelight, her elegant dress hugging her figure perfectly. But she also looked incredibly lonely, and something deep inside my chest ached seeing her like that. I should have left. Any rational person would have walked out of that restaurant and pretended they never saw anything. But instead, I found myself standing up, my legs moving on their own, carrying me across the room toward her table. When I reached her, I cleared my throat softly and said the words that would change both our lives forever. "Gloria, would you mind if I joined you? You look like you could use some company." The shock in her eyes was immediate, followed quickly by something else, something that looked almost like relief. She gestured to the empty chair across from her, and I sat down. My heart pounding Bartu so hard I was sure she could hear it. What I did next, what we both did next, was absolutely unthinkable. But before we see how this story ends, tell us where you are watching from and hype this video in the comments, because what happened between Gloria and me that night was just the beginning of something neither of us saw coming. Let me take you back to where this all started, 6 months earlier. My name is Jerry Patel. I am 29 years old, and I work as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm in downtown Portland. My life was pretty ordinary, the kind of routine that feels safe but slowly suffocates you if you let it. Wake up, coffee, work, gym, dinner alone while watching Netflix, sleep, repeat. I had been single for 8 months, ever since my relationship with Brenda Sanders ended in what I can only describe as a spectacular flameout. Brenda and I dated for 2 years, and I thought we were building something real together. She was 26, worked in real estate, and had this infectious energy that drew people to her like moths to a flame. But underneath all that charm, there was something restless about Brenda, something that was always looking for the next best thing. When she broke up with me, she said I was too stable, too predictable. She wanted adventure, excitement, someone who could match her wild energy. 2 weeks later, she was dating a guy who owned 3 nightclubs and drove a Maserati. The breakup hurt more than I wanted to admit, not just because I loved Brenda, but because her words stuck with me. Too stable, too predictable. Was that really who I was? Had I become so comfortable in my routine that I had forgotten how to take risks, how to live? I spent those 8 months after our breakup questioning everything about myself, wondering if I would ever find someone who appreciated the quiet, steady kind of love I had to offer. During those 2 years with Brenda, I had gotten to know her family pretty well. Her father, Ronald, was this larger-than-life personality who owned a successful construction company. He was the kind of man who commanded attention when he walked into a room, loud and confident and always ready with a joke or a story. But it was Brenda's mother who really caught my attention, though I never would have admitted it at the time. Gloria Sanders was 52 years old, and she was absolutely stunning in a way that had nothing to do with youth or conventional beauty standards. She had this quiet elegance about her, this way of moving through the world that suggested depth and wisdom and experiences I could only imagine. Her hair was a beautiful silver that she wore in a stylish bob, and her eyes were this incredible shade of green that seemed to see right through you. But more than her physical beauty, there was something about Gloria's presence that drew me in. She was thoughtful, intelligent, and had this dry sense of humor that caught me off guard every time. During family dinners at the Sanders house, I found myself looking forward to conversations with Gloria more than anyone else. While Ronald dominated the room with his stories and Brenda chattered about her latest real estate deals, Gloria and I would end up in these quiet side conversations about books, movies, art, life. She had this way of asking questions that made you really think, that made you examine your own thoughts and feelings in ways you had not before. I remember one particular evening, about 6 months into my relationship with Brenda, when Gloria and I ended up alone in the kitchen while she was preparing dessert. Brenda and her father were in the living room arguing about something on the news, their voices getting louder and more animated by the minute. Gloria just shook her head and smiled as she sliced a homemade apple pie. Those two never could agree on anything, she said, her voice warm with affection despite the exasperation. They are too much alike, both of them always convinced they are right about everything. I laughed and asked if she ever got tired of being the peacekeeper in the family. She paused in her slicing and looked at me with those incredible green eyes, and for a moment I felt like she was really seeing me, not just as her daughter's boyfriend, but as a person in my own right. Sometimes, she said quietly, I think about what it would be like to just disappear for a while. Not forever, but just long enough to remember who I am when I am not taking care of everyone else. There was something so vulnerable about that admission, something that made my chest tighten with an emotion I could not quite name. I wanted to tell her that I saw her, that I recognized the person she was underneath all the roles she played for other people. But of course I could not say that. She was my girlfriend's mother, and I was just a 27-year-old guy who was probably reading too much into a simple conversation. But I never forgot that moment in the kitchen, the way she looked when she let her guard down for just a few seconds. Even after Brenda and I broke up, even after months of no contact with the Sanders family, I still thought about Gloria sometimes. I wondered if she ever did disappear for a while, if she ever found time to remember who she was when no one was watching. The months after my breakup with Brenda passed slowly. I threw myself into work, took up rock climbing, tried dating apps with zero success. My best friend Matthew kept telling me I needed to get back out there, that the best way to get over someone was to find someone new. But every date felt forced, every conversation felt shallow compared to the kind of connection I was really looking for. I was beginning to think that maybe Brenda was right, maybe I was too predictable, too boring for the kind of passionate love I saw in movies and read about in books. Maybe I was destined to be the nice guy who finished last, the stable option that women settled for when they got tired of excitement. It was a Thursday evening in late October when everything changed. I had just finished a particularly brutal day at work, dealing with a client who wanted to change their entire brand identity for the fourth time in 2 weeks. I was tired, hungry, and feeling sorry for myself as I drove home through the early evening traffic. I decided to stop at Bella Vista, this little Italian restaurant I had discovered a few weeks earlier. It was quiet, the food was good, and I could sit alone with a book without feeling like everyone was staring at the pathetic guy eating dinner by himself. I had been there for about 20 minutes, working my way through a plate of pasta and trying to lose myself in a novel, when I looked up and saw her, Gloria Sanders, sitting alone at a corner table across the restaurant, looking absolutely beautiful and completely out of place. She was wearing a black dress that was clearly expensive, her hair was perfectly styled, and she had obviously put effort into her makeup. But despite looking stunning, there was something heartbreaking about the way she sat there, checking her phone every few minutes, glancing toward the door with an expression that moved from hope to disappointment and back again. My first instinct was to look away, to pretend I had not seen her. What were the chances of running into my ex-girlfriend's mother at a random restaurant 6 months after the breakup? It felt like the universe was playing some kind of cosmic joke on me, but I could not stop watching her, could not ignore the obvious fact that she was waiting for someone who was not coming. I watched her for nearly 30 minutes, my own dinner growing cold as I debated what to do. She ordered a glass of wine, then another. She kept checking her phone, and each time she did, her shoulders sagged a little more. It was clear that she had been stood up, and the longer I watched, the more my heart ached for her. Finally, I could not take it anymore. I paid my check, gathered my courage, and walked across the restaurant to her table. When I cleared my throat and asked if I could join her, the look on her face was worth every ounce of nervousness I felt. "Jerry," she said, her voice filled with surprise, "what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same question," I replied, settling into the chair across from her. "But it looks like you could use some company." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The awkwardness of the situation hung in the air like a thick fog. Here I was, her daughter's ex-boyfriend, inserting myself into what was clearly a private moment of disappointment. But then Gloria smiled, a real genuine smile that lit up her entire face, and suddenly the awkwardness melted away. "I was supposed to meet someone," she said, her voice tinged with embarrassment. "A blind date that my sister set up. Apparently he got a better offer." "His loss," I said without thinking, and immediately felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. But Gloria just laughed, a sound that was like music to my ears. You always were a charmer, Jerry. I can see why Brenda was so smitten with you. The mention of Brenda created another moment of awkwardness, but I pushed through it. How is she doing? I asked, genuinely curious despite everything that had happened between us. Gloria's expression grew thoughtful. She is doing well, I think. Still dating that nightclub owner. Still convinced that excitement is the most important thing in a relationship. She has always been that way, even as a child. Always looking for the next adventure, the next thrill. There was something in her tone that suggested she did not entirely approve of her daughter's choices, but she was too diplomatic to say so directly. Instead, she changed the subject, asking about my work, my life, how I was handling the breakup. We talked for over an hour, the conversation flowing as naturally as it always had between us. As we talked, I found myself remembering why I had always enjoyed Gloria's company so much. She had this way of listening that made you feel like you were the most interesting person in the world. This ability to ask follow-up questions that showed she was really paying attention to what you were saying. When I told her about my struggles with dating apps and my growing conviction that I was too boring for modern romance, she shook her head firmly. Jerry, she said, leaning forward slightly, you are not boring. You are thoughtful, which is completely different. In a world full of people who are constantly performing, constantly trying to be the loudest voice in the room, being thoughtful is actually quite rare. The way she said it, with such conviction and sincerity, made something warm bloom in my chest. When was the last time someone had seen me that way, had recognized something valuable in the qualities that others dismissed as dull? We talked about books, movies, travel, dreams we had put on hold. I learned that Gloria had always wanted to take a pottery class but had never found the time. She learned that I had been writing a novel in my spare time but was too scared to show it to anyone. We discovered that we both loved old movies, that we both preferred small, intimate gatherings to big parties, that we both sometimes felt like we were living lives that did not quite fit who we really were. The restaurant began to empty around us, but neither of us seemed to notice. It was not until our server politely mentioned that they would be closing soon that we realized how late it had gotten. Gloria looked at her watch and gasped. Oh my goodness, it is almost 11. I had no idea we had been talking for so long. Time flies when you are enjoying yourself, I said, and immediately cringed at how cheesy that sounded. But Gloria just smiled. It really does. This has been the best evening I have had in months, Jerry. Thank you for rescuing me from what would have been a very depressing night of sitting alone. As we gathered our things and prepared to leave, I found myself not wanting the evening to end. There was something magical about the time we had spent together, something that felt significant in a way I could not quite articulate. When we reached the parking lot, Gloria turned to me with an expression I could not quite read. This was lovely, she said, but then her face grew serious. Jerry, I hope you understand that this was just two friends having dinner. With everything that happened between you and Brenda, I would not want anyone to get the wrong idea. Of course, I said quickly, though something inside me deflated slightly. You are absolutely right. This was just dinner between friends. But as I drove home that night, I could not stop thinking about the way Gloria had looked in the candlelight, the sound of her laugh, the way she had really listened to everything I said. I tried to tell myself that she was right, that this was just a friendly encounter between two people who happened to know each other. But deep down, I knew something had shifted between us that night, something that went beyond friendship. I spent the next few days trying to put Gloria out of my mind, telling myself that any feelings I might be developing were inappropriate and impossible. She was my ex-girlfriend's mother, for crying out loud. She was 23 years older than me. She had made it clear that she saw our dinner as nothing more than a friendly gesture. But I could not stop thinking about her. I found myself remembering little details from our conversation, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about books, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was thinking deeply about something. I caught myself wondering what she was doing, whether she was thinking about our evening together at all. A week after our dinner, I was walking through the grocery store when I spotted a familiar figure in the produce section. Gloria was examining apples with the same careful attention she brought to everything else, her silver hair catching the fluorescent lights. My heart started racing and I had to take a deep breath before approaching her. Gloria, I said, trying to sound casual despite the fact that my pulse was hammering in my ears. She looked up and smiled, and I felt that same warm feeling in my chest that I had experienced at the restaurant. Jerry, what a pleasant surprise. How are you? We chatted for a few minutes about nothing in particular, but there was an undercurrent of something else running beneath our casual conversation. When she mentioned that she was cooking dinner for one again, I found myself speaking before I could think better of it. You know, I make a pretty mean stir fry. If you ever want some company for dinner, I would be happy to cook for you. The moment the words left my mouth, I wanted to take them back. What was I doing asking my ex-girlfriend's mother on what amounted to a date? But Gloria's response surprised me. That sounds lovely, she said, her cheeks flushing slightly. I would like that very much. We arranged to meet at her house the following Saturday evening. Gloria lived in a beautiful craftsman-style home in the hills above the city, the kind of place that spoke of good taste and financial success. When I arrived with bags of groceries and a bottle of wine, she answered the door, wearing jeans and a soft sweater that made her look younger and more relaxed than I had ever seen her. You really did not have to bring wine, she said as she led me into her kitchen. But I am glad you did. I think we are both going to need it. Her honesty about the awkwardness of the situation somehow made it less awkward. We worked together in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and talking about everything except the elephant in the room. There was something intimate about cooking together, about moving around each other in the small space, about the way she would brush against my arm when she reached for something. The dinner turned out better than I had hoped, and we ate at her small dining table with candles flickering between us. The wine helped us both relax, and soon we were talking and laughing like we had at the restaurant. But there was something different about being in her home, something more personal and private that made every glance feel charged with possibility. After dinner, we moved to her living room with our wine glasses. Gloria had excellent taste in music, and soft jazz played in the background as we settled onto her couch. The conversation turned more serious, more personal. She told me about her marriage to Ronald, how they had grown apart over the years, how they were now living essentially separate lives under the same roof. We have not been truly happy together in years, she admitted, staring into her wine glass. We stay together out of habit more than anything else. It is easier than facing the reality that we have become strangers to each other. I found myself telling her things I had never told anyone, about my fears that I would never find the kind of love I was looking for, about my growing conviction that I was somehow fundamentally unlovable. She listened without judgment, without trying to fix me or offer empty platitudes. Jerry, she said finally, you are one of the most genuinely good men I have ever met. Any woman would be lucky to have you in her life. The way she said it with such sincerity and warmth made my chest tighten with emotion. We were sitting close together on the couch, close enough that I could smell her perfume, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. The air between us felt electric, charged with an attraction that neither of us could deny anymore. Gloria, I said softly, and she looked at me with an expression that was equal parts desire and uncertainty. This is crazy, she whispered, but she did not move away. I know, I replied, reaching out to tuck a strand of her silver hair behind her ear, but I have not been able to stop thinking about you since that night at the restaurant. Jerry, she said, her voice barely audible, I am old enough to be your mother. You are not old enough to be my mother, I said with a smile. And even if you were, I do not care. Age is just a number, Gloria. What matters is how we feel about each other. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, the weight of what was happening settling between us. Then slowly, carefully, I leaned forward and kissed her. It was soft and tentative at first, but when she kissed me back, when her hand came up to cup my cheek, it deepened into something that took my breath away. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Gloria's cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with desire and confusion and something that might have been fear. This changes everything, she said quietly. I know, I replied, taking her hand in mine. Are you okay with that? She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her mind working, weighing the implications of what we were starting. Finally, she squeezed my hand and nodded. I think I am, she said. For the first time in years, I think I am ready for something to change. What followed was the most intense and beautiful courtship of my life. We had to be careful, discreet. Gloria was still technically married, even though she and Ronald were living separate lives. And there was the obvious complication of my history with Brenda. We could not be seen together in public, could not risk anyone finding out about our relationship until we figured out how to handle the situation. So we met in secret, like teenagers sneaking around behind their parents' backs. Gloria would come to my apartment after work, or I would visit her when Ronald was traveling for business. We would cook dinner together, watch movies, talk for hours about everything and nothing. The physical attraction between us was undeniable, electric, but we took things slowly, savoring each moment of discovery. I had never been with an older woman before, and Gloria's experience and confidence were intoxicating. She knew what she wanted, was not afraid to ask for it, was not burdened by the insecurities and games that had characterized my relationships with women my own age. At the same time, there was a vulnerability to her that broke my heart in the most beautiful way. She had spent so many years taking care of everyone else that she had forgotten how it felt to be cherished, to be the center of someone's attention and affection. I made it my mission to remind her. I brought her flowers for no reason, left little notes in her purse when she was not looking, listened to her dreams and fears with the attention they deserved. I watched her bloom under the care and attention, watched her remember who she was when she was not playing the role of wife or mother or caretaker. Our relationship was not without its challenges. The secrecy was exhausting, and there were moments when the weight of what we were doing felt overwhelming. Gloria struggled with guilt about her marriage, even though she and Ronald had not been truly connected in years. I struggled with the knowledge that if anyone found out about us, they would assume I was some kind of opportunist, taking advantage of a lonely older woman. But the connection between us was too strong to deny. We fit together in ways that surprised both of us. Our conversations flowed effortlessly from deep philosophical discussions to silly jokes that had us laughing until our sides hurt. We shared the same values, the same quiet appreciation for life's simple pleasures. We both preferred intimate dinners at home to crowded restaurants, long walks to expensive entertainment, meaningful conversations to small talk. The physical side of our relationship was a revelation for both of us. Gloria had been with the same man for over 25 years, had almost forgotten what it felt like to be desired with such intensity. I had never experienced the kind of passion that comes from genuine emotional connection, the way physical intimacy could be both tender and overwhelming when it was built on a foundation of real understanding and care. 3 months into our secret relationship, Gloria finally made the decision to separate from Ronald. It was not an easy conversation, but it was one that had been years in the making. Ronald, to his credit, was not entirely surprised. He admitted that he had known for some time that their marriage was over in all but name. "I did not tell him about you," Gloria said when she came to my apartment after the conversation. "I just told him that I needed to figure out who I am when I am not trying to be the person everyone else needs me to be." "How do you feel?" I asked, holding her close as she processed the enormity of what she had just done. "Scared," she admitted, "but also relieved and hopeful. For the first time in years, I feel hopeful about the future." With Gloria's separation from Ronald, we thought the hardest part was behind us. We were wrong. The real test came 2 weeks later when Matthew, my best friend since college, spotted us together at a coffee shop across town. We had thought we were being careful, had chosen a place where we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. But there was Matthew walking in just as Gloria and I were sharing a piece of cake and laughing about something ridiculous. The look on his face was priceless, confusion giving way to shock and then to something that looked almost like horror. He walked over to our table with the expression of someone approaching a car accident. "Jerry," he said slowly, his eyes moving between Gloria and me, "what is going on here?" I could feel Gloria tense beside me, could see her instinctively start to pull away. But I made a decision in that moment that surprised even me. I reached over and took her hand, lacing our fingers together in full view of my best friend. "Matthew," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I would like you to meet Gloria. Gloria, this is my best friend Matthew." To her credit, Gloria recovered quickly, extending her free hand to Matthew with a gracious smile. "It is nice to meet you, Matthew. Jerry has told me so much about you." Matthew shook her hand automatically, but his eyes were still wide with shock. "Jerry," he said, his voice carefully controlled, "can I talk to you for a minute?" "Privately." I looked at Gloria, who nodded encouragingly. "Go ahead," she said softly. I will be right here. Matthew led me outside to the parking lot, and the moment we were alone, he exploded. Jerry, what the hell are you doing? That is Brenda's mother. Brenda, your ex-girlfriend, the woman you dated for 2 years. I know who she is, Matthew, I said calmly. Do you? Because from where I am standing, it looks like you are having some kind of midlife crisis and making incredibly poor decisions. She is old enough to be your mother, Jerry. This is insane. His words stung, partly because they echoed my own fears, the doubts I had been fighting since the night I first kissed Gloria. But they also made me angry, because they reduced what Gloria and I had to something cheap and tawdry. She is not old enough to be my mother, I said firmly, and even if she were, that would not change how I feel about her. I love her, Matthew. I am in love with her in a way I have never been in love with anyone else. Matthew stared at me like I had lost my mind. Jerry, this is not love. This is some kind of psychological rebound thing. You are trying to get back at Brenda by sleeping with her mother. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Is that really what you think of me? I asked quietly. That I would use someone I care about as some kind of revenge against my ex. Matthew's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. I think you are a good guy who is making a really bad decision. This is going to end badly, Jerry, for both of you. And when it does, you are going to lose not just Gloria, but any chance of maintaining a civil relationship with Brenda's family. I understand your concern, I said, trying to keep my voice level. But this is my life, Matthew. These are my choices to make. I am asking you to trust me, to trust that I know what I am doing. Matthew shook his head. I cannot support this, Jerry. I cannot pretend that this is okay or normal or healthy. If you want to destroy your life over some fantasy about being with an older woman, that is your choice. But do not expect me to stand by and watch it happen. The conversation ended there, with both of us too angry and hurt to continue. I went back inside to find Gloria sitting exactly where I had left her, but her face was pale and her hands were shaking slightly. How much of that did you hear? I asked, sliding back into my seat. Enough, she said quietly. Jerry, maybe he is right. Maybe we are making a mistake. The doubt in her voice scared me more than Matthew's anger had. I reached across the table and took both of her hands in mine. Gloria, look at me. Do you love me? Yes, she whispered, tears starting to form in her eyes. But that might not be enough. It is enough for me, I said firmly. I do not care what Matthew thinks or what anyone else thinks. I care about you, about us, about the life we could build together. Are you willing to fight for that? For a moment, Gloria did not answer, and I felt my heart sink into my stomach. But then she squeezed my hands and nodded, a determined expression replacing the doubt on her face. Yes, she said firmly. I am willing to fight for us. I am tired of living my life based on what other people think I should do. That conversation with Matthew was a turning point for both of us. It forced us to confront the reality that our relationship would not be accepted by everyone, that there would be people who would judge us, who would assume the worst about our motivations and feelings. But it also strengthened our resolve to build something real together, regardless of what the outside world thought. Over the next few weeks, we slowly began to be more open about our relationship. Gloria told her sister, who was surprisingly supportive once she got over the initial shock. I told my parents, who were concerned but ultimately trusted my judgment. We started going out in public together, holding hands, acting like the couple we had become. The hardest conversation was still ahead of us, though. Brenda still did not know about our relationship, and we both knew that she would have to be told eventually. Gloria was dreading the conversation, terrified that her daughter would never forgive her for what she would undoubtedly see as a betrayal. The opportunity came sooner than we expected. Brenda called her mother one evening in late January, announcing that she and her nightclub owner boyfriend had broken up and asking if she could come over to talk. Gloria looked at me with panic in her eyes. She is coming over in an hour, Gloria said after hanging up the phone. Jerry, I cannot tell her about us tonight. She is already upset about her breakup. This would destroy her. But I had a different perspective. Maybe this is the perfect time, I said gently. She is already dealing with the end of a relationship. She might be more understanding about why people sometimes need to make unexpected choices in love. Gloria was not convinced, but she agreed to let me stay. When Brenda arrived, she was clearly a mess. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and she looked like she had been crying for hours. She collapsed onto the couch next to her mother and immediately launched into the story of her breakup. He said I was too needy, Brenda sobbed. Can you believe that? Me, needy. I just wanted to spend more than one night a week together. I wanted him to introduce me to his friends. I wanted to feel like I mattered to him. As I listened to Brenda talk, I realized something that surprised me. I felt genuinely sorry for her, but I did not feel the old ache of lost love that I had expected. Somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, I had completely moved on from my feelings for Brenda. She was a part of my past now, someone I cared about but was no longer in love with. Gloria comforted her daughter with the patience and wisdom that I had come to love so much about her. She listened without judgment, offered gentle advice, reminded Brenda that she was worthy of love and respect. It was beautiful to watch, and it made me love Gloria even more. After about an hour, Brenda finally seemed to calm down. She looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time, and suddenly noticed me sitting in the armchair across from the couch. Jerry, she said, her voice filled with surprise. What are you doing here? I looked at Gloria, who took a deep breath and reached for my hand. Brenda, honey, there is something I need to tell you. Jerry and I have been seeing each other. The silence that followed was deafening. Brenda's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, shock, disbelief, and finally something that looked like betrayal. What do you mean, seeing each other? She asked slowly. We are in a relationship, Gloria said quietly. We have been together for several months now. Brenda stood up abruptly, her eyes moving between her mother and me as if she could not quite process what she was hearing. You are dating my ex-boyfriend, she said, her voice rising. My ex-boyfriend, who I brought to family dinners for 2 years. This is sick. Brenda, please, Gloria said, standing up as well. I know this is shocking, but if you would just listen. Listen to what? Brenda shouted. Listen to you explain how you decided to betray your own daughter. Listen to you justify sleeping with a man half your age who used to sleep with me. This is disgusting. The pain in Gloria's eyes was almost unbearable to watch. I could see her starting to crumble under her daughter's harsh words, could see the guilt and shame beginning to override the happiness we had built together. I knew I had to speak up, had to defend what we had found together. Brenda, I said, standing up and moving to stand beside Gloria. I understand that you are upset, but you are not being fair to your mother. What we have is not some sordid affair or betrayal. We fell in love. It was not something either of us planned or expected, but it happened, and it is real. Brenda turned her fury on me. Oh, please, Jerry, spare me the romantic fairy tale. You are having a midlife crisis and using my mother to work through your issues. And you, she said, turning back to Gloria, you are so desperate for attention that you are willing to steal your daughter's leftovers. The cruelty of her words hit both of us like physical blows. I saw Gloria flinch as if she had been slapped, saw her shoulders start to shake with suppressed tears. Something protective and fierce rose up in me, something that would not let anyone, not even Brenda, hurt the woman I loved. That is enough, I said, my voice harder than I had ever heard it. You can be angry with me, Brenda. You can think whatever you want about my motivations, but you will not speak to your mother that way. She has done nothing but love and support you your entire life, and she deserves better than this from you. Brenda stared at me with something like hatred in her eyes. You do not get to lecture me about my mother, Jerry. You do not get to play the protective boyfriend after dating both of us. This whole situation is twisted and wrong, and if you cannot see that, then you are even more pathetic than I thought. I am not pathetic for loving your mother, I said firmly, and she is not desperate for choosing to be with someone who appreciates her. What we have is beautiful and real and worth fighting for. I am sorry that hurts you, but I am not sorry for falling in love with the most amazing woman I have ever met. Gloria looked at me with such gratitude and love that it took my breath away. For the first time since Brenda had started her attack, she stood up straight and found her voice. Brenda, she said quietly but firmly, I love you more than life itself. You are my daughter, and nothing will ever change that. But I am also a woman, and I deserve to be happy. I have spent the last 25 years of my life putting everyone else's needs before my own. For once, I am choosing to do something that makes me happy, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. You are choosing him over me, Brenda said, tears streaming down her face. I am choosing myself, Gloria replied. For the first time in my adult life, I am choosing what I want instead of what everyone else expects from me. I hope someday you can understand that and be happy for me." Brenda looked between us one more time, her face a mask of hurt and anger. "Fine," she said finally. "Choose him. But do not expect me to stick around and watch this train wreck. Do not call me and KO me. Do not text me. Do not try to contact me until you come to your senses and end this ridiculous relationship." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was heavy with pain and uncertainty. Gloria collapsed back onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. "Oh God," she whispered. "I have lost my daughter." I sat down beside her and pulled her into my arms. "You have not lost her," I said, though my own heart was breaking for both of them. "She is hurt and confused right now, but she loves you. She will come around." "What if she does not?" Gloria asked, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes. "What if I have to choose between you and her?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications. I knew what the right answer was supposed to be, knew that any decent person would tell Gloria to choose her daughter over a relationship that was only a few months old. But I also knew that what we had was not just any relationship, that it was something rare and precious and worth fighting for. "I hope you do not have to make that choice," I said finally. "But if you do, I want you to choose whatever will make you happy in the long run. I love you enough to want that for you, even if it means losing you." The weeks that followed Brenda's ultimatum were some of the most difficult of our relationship. Gloria was heartbroken by the estrangement from her daughter, and there were moments when I could see her wavering, wondering if the price of our love was too high to pay. I did my best to support her without pressuring her, to give her space to process her feelings while still showing her how much she meant to me. During this time, we also had to deal with the reactions of other people in our lives. Some of Gloria's friends were supportive, others were judgmental. My coworkers ranged from curious to disapproving. We learned to navigate the stares and whispers, to hold our heads high in the face of people who could not understand what we saw in each other. But for every person who judged us, there was someone else who saw what we had and recognized it for what it was. Gloria's sister became one of our biggest supporters, telling anyone who would listen that she had never seen her sister so happy. My parents, after spending an evening with Gloria, declared that they adored her and could not understand what all the fuss was about. The turning point came 3 months after our confrontation with Brenda. Gloria received a phone call from her daughter, who was crying and asking if they could meet for coffee. Apparently, Brenda's latest relationship had ended badly, and she was beginning to understand some of the things her mother had tried to tell her about love and happiness. The conversation between mother and daughter was not easy, and it took several more meetings before they began to rebuild their relationship. Brenda never fully embraced our relationship, but she eventually reached a place of grudging acceptance. She could see that her mother was genuinely happy, that I treated Gloria with love and respect, and that what we had was not going anywhere. As for Gloria and me, we continued to grow stronger together. We moved in together after 6 months, combining our lives in ways both practical and profound. We traveled together, explored new hobbies together, supported each other through challenges at work and in our families. We discovered that the age difference that had seemed so significant to others was completely irrelevant to us. We were partners in every sense of the word, equals who brought different strengths and perspectives to our relationship. A year after that first dinner at the restaurant, Gloria's divorce from Ronald was finalized. It was an amicable split, with both of them acknowledging that they had grown apart years earlier and that they were better as friends than as spouses. Ronald, surprisingly, was one of the first people to give us his blessing, saying that he had never seen Gloria as happy as she was with me. 2 years after we met, I proposed to Gloria on the anniversary of our first dinner together. I took her back to the same restaurant, to the same corner table where I had first sat down beside her. When I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me, she said yes without hesitation, tears of joy streaming down her face. Our wedding was small and intimate, attended by the people who truly mattered to us. Brenda was there, having finally made peace with our relationship. Matthew was there too, having eventually come around to the realization that what Gloria and I had was real and lasting. My parents walked Gloria down the aisle since her own father had passed away years earlier, and there was not a dry eye in the house. Now, 3 years after that first unexpected encounter at the restaurant, I can honestly say that marrying Gloria was the best decision I have ever made. Our relationship has only grown deeper and stronger with time, built on a foundation of genuine love, respect, and understanding that I never knew was possible. People still sometimes stare when we are out together, still sometimes make assumptions about our relationship, but their opinions matter less and less to us as time goes on. We know what we have, we know how rare and precious it is, and we are not about to let other people's narrow-minded judgments diminish our happiness. Gloria has taught me so much about love, about life, about what it means to be truly seen and valued by another person. She has shown me that age really is just a number, that what matters in a relationship is not how old you are, but how deeply you connect with each other. She has taught me to be brave, to take risks for love, to choose happiness over safety. I have watched Gloria bloom in our relationship, watched her rediscover parts of herself that had been buried under years of taking care of everyone else. She has started that pottery class she always wanted to take, has begun traveling to places she had only dreamed of visiting, has learned to put her own needs and desires first without feeling guilty about it. Our physical relationship has only gotten better with time as well. There is something incredibly powerful about being with someone who knows exactly what she wants and is not afraid to ask for it. Someone who appreciates pleasure without shame or inhibition. Gloria's experience and confidence have taught me things about intimacy that I never would have learned with someone my own age. But more than anything, what I treasure about our relationship is the deep friendship at its core. Gloria is my best friend, my confidant, my partner in every adventure life throws our way. We can talk for hours about anything and everything, can sit in comfortable silence when words are not needed, can support each other through whatever challenges arise. Looking back on that night at the restaurant, I am amazed at how one moment of courage changed both our lives completely. If I had not walked over to her table, if I had let fear and social conventions keep me in my seat, we would have missed out on the greatest love either of us has ever known. So to anyone watching this who thinks they might be too old for love, or too young, or too anything, I want you to know that love does not follow rules or timelines or other people's expectations. Love happens when it happens, with whom it happens, and the only thing that matters is whether you are brave enough to embrace it when it does. If you believe in second chances, if you believe that love has no expiration date, if you believe that sometimes the most unexpected connections turn out to be the most beautiful ones, then like this video and subscribe for more stories about real love in all its forms. Tell us in the comments about your own unexpected love story, or about a time when you had to choose courage over convention. And remember, whether you are 29 or 52 or any age in between, you are never too old to find the love of your life. Sometimes it comes in a package you never expected. Sometimes it requires you to be braver than you thought possible. But when real love shows up, it is always worth fighting for. Gloria and I are living proof that love really can conquer all, that age gaps do not matter when two hearts truly connect, and that sometimes the most unthinkable thing you can do is exactly the right thing to do. We are happier now than either of us ever imagined possible, and we are grateful every single day for the courage we found to choose love over fear. The best love stories are not always the ones that make sense on paper. Sometimes they are the ones that make sense in your heart, the ones that surprise you with their depth and beauty, the ones that remind you that love is the most powerful force in the universe. Our story started with an unthinkable moment of courage, and it has become a lifetime of unthinkable happiness.